Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday with 3W. Wellness Wednesday is sponsored by 3W Medical for Women, a nonprofit medical clinic offering free of charge or low-cost reproductive health services to women in the Seattle area, regardless of income or insurance status. 3W does not profit off of the reproductive health choices women make. The information shared in this podcast is the opinion of the speaker or speakers. Medical information is not intended as individual medical consultation, but for general education only. Always consult your own health professional for personalized advice regarding medical decisions. And if you're in the Seattle area, consider making an appointment to consult with us. I'm Helen Nguyen, CEO and co-founder of 3W Medical for Women and the host of today's podcast. Hi, Wellness Wednesday listeners. This is your host, Helen Nguyen. Thank you so much for being patient with me as my schedule is always crazy and then getting sick recently. But I'm back now, and today, through some technical difficulties, our guest today has been so patient with us. Her name is Mazzy Eckel. Rhymes with freckle is what she reminded me. I wish that we probably need to videotape this, but at some point, because I wish you guys could see her. She's gorgeous.
Oh my gosh.
Makes me feel like maybe I should have combed my hair the second time today. But she is Miss Capitol Hill, USA, and she's running for Miss Washington, USA 2022.
Yes,
so
I am.
welcome, Mazzy. Thank you so
much.
I know how busy you are. So thank you so much for coming today and supporting 3W in our podcast. I know that so many people are going to get so much out of this, but you are going to, I mean, that's the wonderful part about you is you're so personable. And so I just really appreciate that. But you're going to be super vulnerable with us today.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I am.
And what's the topic you want to talk to us today about?
I want to talk to you guys about eating disorders and more specifically my experience as well as it impacted pageants and diving deep more into how eating disorders are different for everybody and they can look different for everybody as well.
Right. So a tough topic that a lot of our patients deal with that we've been observing. And it's heartbreaking because it impacts so many people.
Unfortunately, so many.
Yeah, and so many people. And it's such a secretive sometimes.
Yes, it can be very, if you're living with it for a long time, you just want to protect it at any cost.
Right.
Once you've been so deeply hurt by this mental disease. And I know I did for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when Mazzy brought up this topic, I was like, yes, I want to talk about this, and started doing some research on my own and just was kind of blown away with the statistics of how many people are affected by eating disorders in general, in our nation. One of the statistics that really stood out to me was eating disorders are among the deadliest mental health illnesses, second only to opioid overdose.
I know, it's so insane. And people don't think of it like that. They think of it as a girl thing or something that is normal for teenage women and men to go through, but it's not normal and so deadly. I know that there were points in my journey where I was like, I'm either going to get better or I'm going to die from this. And that was one of the reasons why I decided that I wanted to get better.
Yeah. So when did this start for you? What age, at what stage in your life?
This started very young age for me. I actually was 10 years old, so very young. And I remember exactly the first time when I had what thought about my body that was really negative. I was 10 years old. I was getting ready to take a shower for the night, and I saw myself in the mirror, and I just looked at myself as a 10-year-old, a fifth grader, and just thought my body was so gross or it was ugly. And then after that, I battled it for 6 years, and it took about 2 years from the time I was 10 to I was 12 before I started actually acting. So a lot of people believe that eating disorders are only physical and getting skinny and being almost skeletal-like, but it's really a mental disease. So I believe that my eating disorder started mentally when I was 10 years old, but didn't actually start acting upon it by restrictive eating, hiding food, taking laxatives when I was starting 12 years old until I was about 16.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Did your parents pick up on it? Did people in your community or your circles pick up on it?
Well, kind of. what I believe one of the reasons why I kind of started my eating disorder was partially the desire to be thin and be desirable, and partially because I wanted my parents to intervene. I wanted them to do something. I wanted them to see me, put me in a treatment center, and just take care of me. And that was kind of part of the reason. And I think my parents knew about it. They hinted about it. They would say stuff, but I would just deny it, or I would pretend like I was fine. And they kind of just like, after I denied it, just me saying that, they left it alone. So they never took any action about it. I've had multiple family members kind of hint at it or say it, but no one in my life really ever sat me down and said, I think this is what's going on with you and you need to get help. Like, never. And I think that's what I really needed. So I've realized that no one was going to help me besides me. So that's why I decided to get better. And it impacted me a lot socially, where I wouldn't hang out with friends, or I couldn't hang out with friends that long because they would see me not eating, or they'd find out my secret, or they find out the reason why I'm so thin is not because I'm doing healthy practices. I'm actually doing the opposite, being unhealthy.
Right.
And I was just so afraid socially, mentally. My mind was constantly thinking about, guys, like trigger warning too. My mind was constantly thinking about food and exercise, and I could not think about anything else, which made my mind so full of that and nothing else. And I felt like not a person.
Right. You have like obsessed about.
Yes.
Did you ever think about, okay, if I went out with some friends at a restaurant, like, what am I going to eat?
Oh, that's my biggest fear. Just super
so,
calculated.
Yeah.
Hanging out with friends and family members. I used to come here when I was younger to Seattle to visit all my family members. And once the eating disorder got really bad towards like 13 and 14, it was scary because around my parents, they didn't really see me. So I can pretend like I was fine. I didn't have to hide. I didn't have to act weird. They really just left me alone. But when I'm around my family the entire time, staying with grandparents and aunts and uncles, I couldn't hide. So it was very anxiety ridden to come visit the place that I used to love. So that was a huge impact in me.
Wow. Wow. So when did it get bad? When did you know, oh my gosh, this has consumed my life? And at such a young age.
Yes.
So it took probably a lot of self-awareness to be like, wow, I'm really getting to a point where I need to make a change, or I continue on this. When was that for you?
One of the points, I know it definitely was when I was 16 and I started doing sports. I was doing cheerleading and I was doing track. And after every practice, I was exhausted, where I would just falling asleep as soon as I got home from school. And at that time, I had been abusing laxatives for a while and really not healthy. And there was like one point where I had like very, very bad stomach pains from it. And I was laying on my bathroom floor. I don't know exactly how old I was. I might have been 16. And I just was like, am I going to die? This is the most painful stomach pain I've ever felt. I don't know what was going on. And then I felt better after a little bit, but that was really scary. And I realized that I was really impacted so much by this, and every area of my life was being affected. And I just wanted to stop. I wanted to have a better relationship with my body and actually be friends with myself.
During that period of time, you said your family kind of hinted at you about, okay, there might be something going on there. Did you ever hint it at them? Was there ever someone you confided in and they didn't do anything, or?
Not really. I believe after I decided to go into recovery, and my recovery was different from a lot of people, I would say, I mentally decided that I wanted to get better. That's when I started being more open about it and talking about it, because at the time I was recovering, I had a friend that had an eating disorder and hers went south, like really, really bad, where she was institutionalized after a few months of it. And I was talking a lot about it to her, but I was very fiercely protective of my eating disorder when I was really in it. I wanted no one to know. I would hide food. I would make sure that no one knew about it. But like eventually people did know about it. Pick up on it. But they just never really said anything.
Okay. What was your recovery process after you made up your mind? Okay, I can't keep doing this. What did that look like for you?
It was very lonely. I did not reach out to any doctors or therapists like I probably should have. I just didn't have the education. I didn't know how to attack this. It was mostly on my own. I just slowly started incorporating more food. I started being nicer to myself, trying not to focus on my body so much. And one thing that really helped me was working out, but working out in a way that was making me stronger. And I started framing my mind in a way that my body was a machine and I get out of it what I put into it. So I realized that when I would eat more and I would eat healthier and I would be nicer to myself mentally, I could lift more weights.
Wow.
I can be stronger. And I have one of my friends named Safa, who I'm still best friends with. It was probably a year into my recovery. She invited me to be her gym buddy. And her and I would cook dinners after the gym together. I started falling in love with cooking. I grew up with mostly a single dad, and he only ordered takeout all the time. So I was not getting a lot of valuable ideas for food and cooking. So I started cooking for myself, buying groceries, and I really loved eating healthy in a way that was sustainable, in a way that I was eating 3 to 4 meals a day and just working out and realizing that I can be stronger once I eat more. And it definitely takes a long time to recover, and I don't think I'm fully recovered as of now. I think when you have an eating disorder, it's something that's always in the back of your mind a little bit, and you have to be really aware of the eating disorder, because if you pretend like you never had it, you can easily slip back into old habits. So I always have to constantly be aware of that and be aware of that. I'm kind of like a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
You have to be aware and not let yourself slip back into those patterns, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking while you were describing that. Is like, it's like any other addiction. It's because it's a relationship with food. For alcoholics, it's a relationship with alcohol. So, for the alcoholics that I've known in my life, it's like they don't put themselves in situations where a lot of alcohol is there because it's triggering. So when you go to like a party or something like that and there are donuts, like, do you go, okay, I can only have one? Like, what kind of mental hoops do you have to jump through to go, I can only have a slice of it, or I can only have half of it? Because I know what I want to do when I look at a donut. I want to eat the whole thing. But like what type of mental process do you have to go through when you look at something as desirable as a donut, or it's not even desirable to you? I don't know.
It's definitely intuitive eating, making sure that I'm paying attention to my body and not just binging on something to binge on something. I'm not super into sweets. So I'm not
what a blessing.
I do have I'm really into carbs. So that's my junk food is pasta, or I like this awesome vegan mac and cheese pizza. So that's my thing. I'm not super into sweets, but it's making sure that I'm eating full meals, and that if I really want chocolate, let myself have a piece. And that's mostly all I want, instead of just force myself to be restrictful and not eat something sweet. Then I'm going to attack that donut because I've been not letting myself eat that forever. So it's really letting yourself have a little bit of something if you really want to. That's how to live a more intuitive eating and healthier life.
So in moderation.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Everything in moderation, not gorging on one thing or completely cutting it out, but just little bits of it. I wish I can do that with chocolate. I just usually eat the whole bar, which is terrible. Don't do what I do. But okay, that is just so interesting. So why do you want to talk about this today? Is it just to raise awareness and tell your story, or is it more than that? Why do you want to tell your story?
The main thing I was thinking about when I was trying to think about why I want to do this is the fact that eating disorders are so different for every person. And what I've learned from researching recovery and posting about it, connecting with the recovered eating disorder community is that you don't have to be a skinny stick figure person to have anorexia. You can have a healthy body weight and still have an eating disorder. It's a mental disease.
Right.
And it's so different for everyone. I know I saw something where a lot of the community doesn't like when people post pictures of them being super skinny and unhealthy to being normal or a normal healthy body weight. And that's because not everyone has the same experience, and eating disorder is not just what it looks like physically. As well as I think I was talking to you about a lot of people dismiss eating disorders as, oh, it's a girl thing. Girls are insecure. They have girls and younger boys. It's a culture thing. And girls are always on these diets. And I have learned to hate diets. I think they're insane. They're crazy. They're unsustainable.
Yeah.
And a lot of eating disorder culture is in diets and always trying to restrict. And I think it's a women thing where we feel so insecure and having this need to always be thin and put in this mold. So I really love talking about it and breaking out of it, because I have this theory that men do push the standards of thin beauty on women is because thin women aren't, what's the word? Intimidating. Exactly. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Intimidating. Whereas a woman who is strong and healthy and in their power is really intimidating to men. That's what I believe.
Wow. That's an interesting
I just
theory.
learned that and I was like, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
How do you know, you're on social media a lot because of the career path that you want for yourself. How do you think social media has changed that with body image, right? Because
oh my gosh.
Well, you know, talking about what's relevant, like Facebook is in the news and Instagram is in the news these days, because there's the study that's coming out that shows the more young girls look at these social media platforms, the more depressed they get, the more they judge their bodies. And, you know, how do you balance that for yourself being on social media, because you have to be in some ways, and then combating that other side of it, you know?
There's this awesome feature on Instagram where you can mute people's profiles, their posts and their stories. So it's a part of my recovery was unfollowing. I used to follow so many Victoria's Secret models, so many beautiful people that I consider beautiful. And it was really negatively impacting me. And I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So I unfollowed all these models I used to follow. And then any people I followed after that, if I looked at their photo and I felt a twinge of doubt or insecurity just by looking at their photo, I just muted their profile or muted their stories and posts. So I didn't have to see that.
Wow.
So that is a way that people can really start curating their Instagram to focus more on body positivity, having news and research in their Instagram instead of just pretty photos. You can still follow the person. You don't have to unfollow them.
Yeah.
I know I have some friends, especially in the pageant community, full of beautiful women where I follow them and I still love them so much, but I can't help it. Their photos make me feel kind of insecure. So I just mute their photos, and that's what really helps me and still has me connected with them still.
Yeah. That's such a good intentional way of approaching social media in general. I've muted so many people.
I've muted so many people. I love that feature. You're still following them in a way.
Yeah.
But you're protecting your mental health in that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, even for me, I you know, talking about social media, I feel like after scrolling, you know, for 10 minutes, you kind of go, gosh, I don't feel great about the world, or I don't feel good in general. And it really does impact your mental health.
Yes, it does.
In so many ways. So super interesting how that's going on right now with Facebook. I'm very curious about following that story. Yeah, I would imagine, like you said, looking at Victoria's Secret models especially.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. I used to think that if I wasn't a Victoria's Secret model, I just would never be happy.
Yeah.
That was like my one goal when I was 16. And then I realized how unhealthy that is to be. And these girls are not even happy themselves. Yeah. I've realized from so many girls coming out in the industry, and they're not, not all of them, but some of them have eating disorders. Some of them are pressured. They feel insecure. These beautiful, beautiful women feel insecure themselves. So then you look at yourself, you're like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Even the most gorgeous woman in the world has insecurities too. So that makes you feel not as alone, I would say.
How do you define beauty?
Beauty to me has changed more from physicality. It's more about being vulnerable. You know, it's very evident from what we've faced through the coronavirus, and we've all gone through so much trauma in different ways. I know I have, not just even staying inside, but we've lost people, and we've been through some illnesses, and talking about those vulnerabilities and sharing those stories, because the pandemic is the one thing that connects us all is strength to me. And that is beauty, is showing that strength and vulnerability and talking about what we've all been through the past 2 years, whatever it has been.
Yeah. How would you define your body now? How would you talk about it with someone coming out, as you continue to deal with this mental health issue, but how would you describe your body now?
My body and I, we're in a marriage together.
Yeah.
We're in a marriage. Sometimes it's very rocky, where there's times in stress where I do feel the need to restrict on stuff, but we fight, but we still are committed to each other at the end of the day. Yeah. And I'm always trying to do what's best for my body, which is stay healthy, eat healthy, making sure that I'm checking in with it and making sure that I'm giving it what it needs, whether that be stretching or a day off or going for a light walk. And sometimes I can admit, even with pageants, sometimes it can be difficult when you get closer to the pageant and you have to diet a little bit or tweak what you're eating. It does give me anxiety in that way. But realizing that before I was doing the exact same thing for an unhealthy reason, and now I'm doing this for a positive reason, and that's to be Miss Washington, be Miss USA, and further my career. So having those differences and realizing them is what sets aside from an eating disorder versus me working towards something and trying to maintain this marriage with my body.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great way of talking about a marriage with your body.
We fight sometimes. Don't worry about that. We do fight a little bit, but it's like healthy fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, one last question, because this is just so interesting to me. One last question. If our listeners are out there that are dealing with eating disorders themselves, what is one message you'd like to get across to them?
The first thing is that people need to want to help themselves. They want to have to get better, because if you're trying to get better, but you don't necessarily are motivated for it and you just are still stuck in that cycle, then it's going to be very difficult to get out. You have to look at yourself and say, is this what I want to have for the rest of my life? Do I want to be in my 40s and 50s and still not having a great relationship with my body? Or do I want to form a friendship and start taking steps to being a best friend with my body? And I feel that everyone wants to be best friends with their body, because at the end of the day, it's only you that's there. And you wake up to yourself, you're with yourself all day. You want to have a healthy space to live in, and that is your mind.
Yeah.
So you really have to do it for yourself, because you can't do it for anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to live with it. So you got to get yourself out of it or through it somehow. And that's a beautiful message for anyone listening out there. Please know that you're not alone. And, here at 3W, we want to be that girlfriend that you can confide in if this is something that you're struggling with, because we have resources and we have licensed healthcare professionals that could walk you through this process wherever you're at. I think Mazzy, you would totally be such a wonderful resource if someone wanted to reach out to you.
If
and
someone
just
wants to DM me, my Instagram is Mazzy Eckel, MAZZYECKEL at Instagram, on Instagram.
Yeah.
If you want to DM me with any questions or just talk about how to get steps to get yourself help, then please DM me.
Yeah. We'll have that listed on our description too. Mazzy, thank you so much for enlightening us with, the information that you have about eating disorders. Obviously, we've just scratched the surface of this.
There's so much more.
There's so much more. So I think we should have Mazzy back just so that we can see her, because she's such a joy when she comes in. But we just scratched the surface. I think this should be a series and have her come back, and even maybe have one of our licensed healthcare providers join in on the conversation. But, this topic, it really hits home for the 3W family, because we lost someone that was on our board, in our community to this mental health disease, actually. So this episode and this conversation is for her, and for anyone out there that's suffering with this, please know that you're not alone. We get it. We get how hard this is. And so thank you, Mazzy, for being here with us. We'll have you back for so many other things.
Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If there are other topics that you'd like us to explore, Mazzy has a wealth of knowledge. So email us, get in touch with us, ask Mazzy a question. We can relay the question to her and get you connected with her, and go from there. So thanks so much for tuning in, and be well. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Thank you, Mazzy.
Thank you.
For more information about 3W, please visit our website at 3wmedical.org. That's the number 3, the letter W, medical.org. From there, you can learn more information about the services we provide, book an appointment, or make a donation if you'd like to support our mission. You can also call our office at 206-588-0311. That's 206-588-0311. If you like this episode, please share it with others and consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.